Hello, my name's Amanda Whewell and welcome to week 7 of our World Art for World Kindness Day project with High Peak Community Arts. This is the final week and we're off to Japan to look at the work of Katsushika Hokusai. All the artists we've looked at so far worked through the 20th century, but Hokusai goes back further than that. He was born in 1760, so this work is much older than anything we've looked at so far. He started painting when he was 6 years old. When he was 12, he got a job working in a bookshop. When he was 16, he became an apprentice engraver, and by the time he was 18, he was working for one of the most famous artists in Japan at the time. He's most famous for a series of woodblock prints which are called 36 Views of Mount Fuji. There's a really famous one called The Great Wave, which you will probably have seen, and that's what we're going to be inspired by today. He began painting these views of Mount Fuji when there was a tourist boom in the area where he lived, and he was painting them to sell to the tourists and also to advertise the region. He became obsessed with the mountain, and although it's called 36 Views of Mount Fuji, he couldn't stop painting it and printing it, and he actually made 46 views of Mount Fuji. Like most of the other artists that we've looked at through this series, he painted what he saw in his local area, and all the views show different scenes from everyday life in Japan through the 18th and 19th century. He wanted to show how, as life moved on, the seasons changed, the colours changed, and the activities changed. Mount Fuji stayed still, so that was a constant in his world. All the work we're doing today is printmaking. We're going to have a go at a couple of different kinds. We started off with printing with Sonia Delaunay, and we're going to finish off with printing like Hokusai. So I'll go now and do the demo. I'll see you later. Okay, so this week for the Hokusai printing, you're going to need your sketchbook or some paper or some of your white card. You're going to need your paper plate paint palette, some glue, a stick for your glue and a pot to put it in, some of these dishwasher sponges. I bet you've been wondering what they're doing in your art bag. Something to get your glue out with, a pair of scissors, coloured pencil, any colour, it doesn't matter what colour. You're going to need your polystyrene tile, which we've been keeping for week 7. When you undo this, you're also going to need the string that's tying it up, the cardboard that's protecting it. So all those things. You're going to need your paints, all your paints, whatever you've got left. I've got blue, green and white there. And some things to print with. So you could have lids like we used in the first week with Sonia Delaunay. Can show you things you can do with a kitchen roll or toilet roll middle. I've got some plastic packaging here, packets that crackers and things have come in, a lid of a butter tub, you've got string over there, and you've got cardboard, anything like that. You might also, want to have a go at printing with some fruit and vegetables. Now, I don't want to waste food, but the examples that I'm going to show you that I've done earlier, I did with one stick of celery and a potato. And today I've got the top of an onion, taking the middle bit out, top and bottom of a carrot, one small potato and half a mushroom. So we don't have to use a lot of things, but if you've got any bits of fruit and vegetable lying around, you could use one slice of an apple, anything like that. So that's an option as well. I'm just going to put those down there for now. Okay, so that's what we need. I'm just going to tidy up the workspace and we'll get started. So we're going to look at Hokusai's Great Wave. It's here on the PDF print. I've got a close-up of a bit of it, this central bit here, from the cover of my Japanese print book. And you can see here that there's boats being tossed about on these giant waves. When you see the whole thing, you quite often don't see the boats, you don't notice them because they're hidden in the waves. You can see the people in the boats trying to row these boats to safety. In the background there is Mount Fuji. So this is a bit of a detail of this painting. Well, I say painting, it's actually a print. It's about 200 years old, and it's probably the most famous and well recognised pieces of Japanese art. You may well recognise it, you may well have seen this image in books or in exhibitions. Because it's a print, there are several copies of it, so it's in lots of galleries and museums all over the world will have a copy of it. It's a woodblock print, which means that it was printed from a piece of wood that had been carved out. So the design will have been carved out from the wood, then the wood will be inked and stamped onto the page. It'll be layered up with different colours. It's a very difficult process and uses lots of special tools and equipment. So we're going to do a version of it using your polystyrene tile. Now I've cut my tile in half, so I've got one that I've done already, so I can show you how to do it. If you do want to cut it in half or even into 4 small pieces, it will cut easily with a pair of scissors, but be very careful and cut from one side and then join up from the other side to cut it. If you try cutting right through, it might bend and break. It's very, very delicate. So I'm going to have a go at drawing some waves onto here. If you want to have a practice in your sketchbook first, you could have a practice at drawing a great wave in your sketchbook and have a play about with some different designs. It's not easy to print onto the tile, to draw onto the tile. It's easier than woodblock printing, but it's quite difficult, so don't overcomplicate your designs. So I'm going to look at that wave there. You're going to use your coloured pencil. Start off quite lightly while you get the feel of it, and you can see where I'm making a mark. It's not making a colour, but it's making a dent in the foam. Sometimes it's easier to keep drawing in one direction. You see, rather than now turning around and drawing up, it might be easier to keep drawing towards yourself. So I'm going to try and bring that down there. Just going to do some more splashes there. Now I can go over that a bit deeper. You want to press quite hard so you get quite a groove in there, but you don't want to press so hard that you go right through your polystyrene. So take your time making a groove. I'm just going to go over what I've drawn a bit heavier, so I've got a big, strong, bold line there. It's probably easier doing it on the big one, but it only gives you one chance. Now I'm going to add some detail, so I'm going to add a few lines in there. I'm going to try and add some sort of wavy patterns along there. The more detail you get in, the more exciting you print. And I'm going to put some splashes like we saw in the original, and some dots. And I'm going to carry on. I haven't put Mount Fuji in, but you could do Mount Fuji, you could do one of the boats. I did this one earlier. It's a similar design. I've got the wave in there, I put one of the boats in, and I've got loads of dots in the background. I've tried to build up as much texture as possible. So what I'm going to do now is to print the tile. If you've cut it into 2 or 4, you can do all the drawing first and then print it. You could print it straight into your sketchbook if your sketchbook's flat, but I've got all sorts of things stuck in mine. It needs to have a flat surface to print it on, so I'm going to print it onto this piece of paper. So you need some paint on your paint palette. I've put some out on here already. And you're going to need these sponges. They've been in your bag all the time. Probably you've been wondering what they're for. Not for cleaning up, they're for printing. Ideally, we would roll over that with a printing roller, but we don't all have a printing roller, so I'm going to show you how you can do it with a sponge. I'm going to use some white paint and some blue paint. I'm just going to mix them on the sponge. Now this is important. You put the paint onto your sponge, but then you must dab your sponge around on the plate. You want to be holding the scratchy green bit and putting the soft spongy bit into the paint. But before you put it onto your palette, you want to have paint on there, and you want it to be sort of smooth like that, so you can still see the texture of the sponge. If your paint's like that on it, it's not going to work. If your paint's too thin, it won't work. So dab your sponge around in the paint a bit till you've got it covered, but you can still see the texture of the sponge. Then again, using that dabbing motion, dab quite gently. If you start rubbing it across, you're going to end up getting it in the grooves that we've made. So can you see how that paint is going on, but it's not going into the grooves? I need a little bit more, so I'm just going to dab that around a bit. I might get a slightly different colour, that doesn't matter. Now I'm dabbing this on top of the paper I'm going to print on, but you'd be better off not doing that. Do it on the side. So once you've got that covered, you want to work quite quickly so the paint doesn't dry. Once that's covered, you're going to turn it upside down and put it onto your paper. And then you want to press it firmly, but with your flat hands. If you bash it, it's likely to smudge and move about. If you poke it with your finger might well go through the polystyrene. So use your hands flat like that to make sure you've pressed it down evenly all over, and then lift it up. And underneath you'll have an amazing wave print. So that's really good fun and a very simple technique once you get the hang of drawing on the polystyrene. The important thing is the right amount of paint. If you have too much paint, it will go in the grooves and it will make a splodgy mess. If you don't have enough, or you don't work quickly enough, it'll be like this. It won't print properly. If you try and do a second one, you haven't got enough paint, it'll be too faded like that. Although that can look nice too if you want that effect, but to get a good print, so if you wanted to do another one, you would start again dabbing, and you could mix your colour. You could put a bit of green in, you know, you can mix the colours, but just do that dabbing gently so that you're not going into the grooves. So there is your foam tile printing. I hope you enjoy that. You can use the tiles again. If you do get paint in the grooves, you can just very carefully wipe the paint off, run it under a tap and clean the grooves out and try again. So you can reuse it, but you do have to handle it carefully because it's quite delicate. That's foam tile printing. Now we'll move on to our second activity. Okay, so for the second activity, we're going to use things you might have lying around the house. This is a cracker packet, a toilet roll. You've got your cardboard that your tile was wrapped in and your string. We can use that. We can also use fruit and vegetables. Now, don't want to be wasting loads of fruit and vegetables, but this little picture here, I made that using one stick of celery and a potato. And here I've got some things that were lying around the fridge. Potato is always good. You can cut your potato in half there and use that. Then the other half you could cut again, which gives you another shape. There. You could cut this, gives you different shapes. So you can cut it different ways to get different shapes. I've got the top and bottom of a carrot there for some circles. A mushroom is lovely. This mushroom's going a bit off. I've got half a mushroom there. I've got an onion with the middle out, so we can have a go printing with those. I'm just going to put those back here. That's one option. This keeps sliding off the table. So let's look at this before we start. So this was made, that was the potato, like this. The sails there were made with chopped pieces of potato, like that. And the seagulls and the waves were all made with a stick of celery. I haven't got one today, but you can use the curved part of the celery by slicing it, or you can cut a long thin strip and I used the stalks of the celery there to use the edge to make a long strip. This toilet roll flower, you get a toilet roll. I'm just going to try and keep that in place by standing that there. And just snip triangles around the toilet roll. Keep snipping those triangles. Work your way all the way around. When you've gone all the way around, bend those triangles backwards like that. And you'll end up with a star or a flower like that, which is what I used to print that flower. I used the milk bottle top to print the middle. Get rid of those. I made the leaves using that piece of potato like that. And this, I used the string and the cardboard. So I took a piece of the cardboard, I spread some glue all over it like this. Again, using the cocktail stick. If the glue's too, you could probably do with it reasonably thick for this, but that's okay. And then your piece of string that was tying your parcel up, and just gradually, you might need to use, sometimes if your fingers get really sticky, you can sort of use the back of your nail to hold it in place. It doesn't stick quite so much as your fingers. Keep going round and round. You can make a, and I used it as a flower, but it could be used as all sorts of things to make a stamp like that. There's the one I used before, so I spiraled it round. Then I cut the spare bits of card off to get a better print, so you can do that. You could also make a little scene using just the cardboard. So I made one here, I don't know if you can see that, with just like waves and mountains, but you could cut out little triangles and a little boat shape. You could stick those on, little boat there. You could put a sunshine up there and some waves for it to be going on. Again, you could stick that down, spreading your glue thinly. If you're going to make a stamp with the string or the cardboard, you stick your pieces down, but you must wait until it's completely dry before you print it. Otherwise, when you lift it up, you'll find that your stamp will stick to the paper. I put the glue on the wrong side of that one. Just turn it around. There. So you could carry on sticking that to make a little boat stamp. Entirely up to you. So there's loads of things there. I'm just going to do a little quick demo of how you could print and put them together. You've seen those pictures there. Here I've done the flowers again. I've used this packet from some crackers to make patterns here. Sometimes I filled it in with the milk bottle top. And I'm just going to have a go at doing some of the things I've just made now, so you can see how we do it. So again, I would recommend using the sponge to put the paint on. You could dip things straight in, but I think the sponge will give you a better effect. So there's the potato. You could just try dipping that straight in, depending on how you want to do it. It would work quite well with the potato. You could do that. And you could turn that into whatever you like. So we could do some potato prints like that. Whoops, I slipped. Once that's dry, it looks actually quite like the sea. I've got some nice textures in there, so dipping in might work well with some things. I'm going to show you the onion now. I'm going to dip the sponge into the green paint, dab it off again so we don't get it too thick. Dab that around there. I think this should give us a really nice, interesting print. There's the onion. Again, press it down firmly, carefully. The onion might come apart. That's quite interesting, isn't it? So let's put a bit more paint, do another one of these. So you can just paint patterns. Smooth these up a bit. And shapes. You could make up a picture like I did with the little boat in the other one. If you're going to do a picture, if you have an old butter tub like this, you can make a really nice frame. I'm dabbing that paint in. If you dab your paint all around the edge of this butter tub and print that very carefully so it doesn't slip and smudge. Push that down all the way around. Makes a nice little frame, so you could have a frame for your picture. I'm going to just turn this round like that. I wonder if that little boat would fit in there. So I'm going to put that in the blue. Again, I'm just going to dab that on. You are better off cutting off the spare cardboard, but just to show you, I'm going to put that little boat in there. Press it down firmly inside the frame. Lift that up. We've got a little boat and maybe a moon. You could use a string. You could make a little string sea or something like that. So just have a go playing about with that. I've got one more thing, I just want to try it. This is another cracker packet. I haven't tried this yet, so let's have a look what happens if we do this. So again, I'm just dabbing that paint on. I think this is going to be cool. I'm going to put that in the middle of my page and press it down. So there's so many things you can print with. Let's lift that up. Look at that, that's so cool. You could do all sorts of things in there. I don't think I need to show you anymore. I'm just getting a bit overexcited here. I could just show you the toilet roll. I showed you how I made it. Let's just print it off. So there it is, just so you see how it is. When you do this, you do need to sort of hold it in place and kind of try and squish each triangle down so it gets the whole flower printed. Didn't do very well there, I missed one out. I shouldn't have showed you that one, should I? Shouldn't have got carried away. Let's put the circle in the middle. There. So loads of stuff to experiment and play about with there. Really good fun. You can do it straight into your sketchbook, but make sure it's going onto a flat surface. Now before I go, I'm just going to show you your extra activity, and you need all these things that you've just been using for this final activity. What you don't need is the paper. So I'm going to move the paper out of the way. I've got very messy fingers here, so I'm just going to wipe those off. And you're going to print your art bag. So if you're not part of Project Earth, you're doing this project, if you've got a canvas bag, you can print onto it. Otherwise, just carry on your paper. If you're part of Project Earth, you need your art bag that all your materials came in. And inside here, I've got a cereal. Oh, you can't see that. I've got a cereal packet. I've put a piece of plastic over it, and I've put that inside to give me a nice flat surface to work on. I'm going to put this down here. The cardboard is to give it a flat surface. The plastic stops it sticking. So if you've got a piece of plastic and a piece of cardboard, any cardboard, put that in there. Nice flat surface. And I'm not going to print this one because it's not actually mine. But you just go ahead, print on your bag. You can print both sides, but make sure you've completely dried the first side before you turn it over and print the other side. You can print the kind of things we've been doing today, the vegetables and the household bits and pieces. You can print circles like Sonia Delorney. You can use your little tile, polystyrene tile. Make scenes with your cardboard, whatever you like. And the acrylic paint is permanent, so once it's on your bag, it won't come off in the rain. Should be washable for a few washes at least. And that's Hokusai. Hope you've had fun. Well, I hope you enjoyed printing like Hokusai. You should have a fancy bag now and lots of printing in your book. We could print on the cover of your sketchbook if you want to. That's the end of this project, so I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've been working with us with Project Earth, then have a go through your sketchbook, see if you've got any spare pages. You could fill them in a style that you really like, or you could have a look at another artist, research your own artist, find a painting that inspires you and have a go at doing some work in that style. do put comments in your book, because we're going to hopefully collect your books on the 29th or the 30th of July and choose an image from each book, which will go onto our coasters that we're going to give out on World Kindness Day in November. Put comments on there if you liked the project, if you didn't like it, if you liked the artist, if you didn't, anything that you'd like to let us know, you can put in there. You can also post images, and anyone, if you've been joining us not from Project Earth, I hope you've enjoyed it, and hope you'll carry on doing some artwork, and anybody can post their images of their work on High Peak Art's Facebook page, so it would be lovely to see what you've been doing. I think that's all for now. I'm just really excited, looking forward to seeing the work you've done, and I hope you've enjoyed at least some of the weeks and had a go at different things that you might not have tried. Hopefully see you again soon, and I'm looking forward to seeing your work. Bye for now.